Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rolling 20s. We are the show that wonders what would have happened if T'Challa had met Martin Luther King in real life. I am Jeremy. Remember, you can subscribe to this show and several others in the MSP library at missionstarpodcast.com. You can like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and on Tumblr. Follow us on Twitter at the Rolling 20s. You can send us any fan mail, suggestions for the show, or hate mail at mspfreight@yahoo.com. The music you heard at the beginning of the show is by Machina Supremacy. You can find more of their discography for free download at machinasupremacy.com, as well as their latest couple of albums on amazon.com. This was the very last panel I hosted at... Actually, second to last panel I hosted at the Cashman Center in Las Vegas, Nevada during Great American Comic-Con on December 3rd and 4th. There was another one that I did afterwards, however, there was just too many people and the microphones didn't pick us all up very well, so I wasn't able to use the footage. But it was a lot of fun, and I hope to catch up with the Secret Identity show later to do a Skype recording, and you guys can hear the creative magic that these people had. I've seen the show online. It's fun. But this particular panel was titled The Art of Comic Covers. And this was special to me because it involved a creator I wasn't familiar with named Mr. Ron Wilson. This man had worked on a number of series, including the first Heroes for Hire, and he was there on the early inception of Luke Cage. Not at the very beginning, but he was very instrumental in fleshing out these characters. However, what surprised me even more was that the other man at the panel, another creator, was actually a fan of Mr. Wilson's, and he gushed more than I did. I met this man at the previous Great American Comic-Con in 2015. He is a notorious cover artist. He's done some award-winning covers for The Punisher, and he also got his beginning in Vampire the Masquerade. He is Mr. Tim Bradstreet. Wait until you hear how much love he has for Ron Wilson. It is amazing. Take a listen.
You know, I'm gonna be on this panel in the audience to try to balance. This is my panel every time I do a panel.
Oh yeah?
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, a rough time.
Yeah.
It's never. I don't even like to do them.
You know, maybe it's. You know,
if there was a studio full of people, it'd be one thing. But
Yeah, because
I just came to talk to Ron, actually.
you know,
And remember you to something that happened a long time ago. You don't.
It's called Magnolias.
Magnolias, yeah.
So what happened a long time ago?
I did a convention. My first comic show was in 1983 in Chicago. It was one of those creation shows.
yes.
And it was, you had just done Super Boxers. It was you and Vern were sitting there.
Right.
And then there was someone on your right, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Will Reinhold. I don't know. I can't remember. And then Walt was there too.
Yes.
And you remember the show, don't you?
I remember the show because Walt and I were afraid to fly.
Oh, really?
And we was literally in each other's arms.
That's great.
The plane it just dropped like an elevator. Is it?
When it did that 200-foot drop?
Yeah.
I hate that.
You know what I mean? So.
I do one thing in that situation. I look at the stewardess. If she's green,
Right.
I put my head between my legs. If she's all,
Exactly.
I'm good.
So it's a love-hate thing with me and flying, but I think pilots have the best job in the world, although secretly I think we do. But Dr. J said he has the best job in the world.
well, I would not say that.
Now, I don't make his money, and not in even his universe, but I don't know.
But I got a red, white, and blue ABA ball.
Yeah.
Just because of him.
Yeah, I think our gig is kind of cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wish they paid us more.
It's
but
pretty goddamn
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So what was the story? I was there.
Here's the story.
So I was, I'm a huge John Byrne fan. I was like, I picked up, I think, just stumbled on, was going on vacation, X-Men 108 and then 109. I picked up like 3 of them in a row.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with him, and I just became a huge fan. And by this time, 83, he was toward the latter half of his Fantastic Four run, right? And see, this great stack of pages there. It took like an hour and a half to get up to it, right? You finally get there, and there's this fucking page from Fantastic Four splash on the helicarrier with Black Panther, Nick Fury. It's like, I would kill to have that. I don't know how much it was, though.
Right.
Probably $300-400.
Jesus.
Right now. And then Walt doesn't sell those, right? He doesn't sell stuff.
Oh.
So anyway, I had a sketch pad, sketch stuff with me, and I was young. I just really wanted to be an artist, and I'm at my first show, and this is like, oh my God, you know. I walk in and I see a Ronin. The first thing I see is Frank Miller's Ronin when I walked in.
Yeah.
I was like, what the? And then it was like, I found my place.
Yeah.
You know? And so I stood in line for John, and I got up to him, and I said, I said, I'm a huge fan, and tried not to trip over my tongue and shit like that. And I said, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind taking a look at my work. Not knowing John.
Right.
He said, yeah, no problem. So I handed him the sketchbook. He fanned it. Nice. You must have seen my face, because right after that, you went, can I see that? And I went, yeah. And you gave me very good advice. You gave me a beautiful critique. You were like, here's what you can do to improve this and this thing. And just gave me some nice advice. And that's all I wanted, you know.
Right.
And you knew it. You could read it.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
My favorite artist that day.
Really? Jesus
Wow.
Christ.
I'm serious. I'm dead serious. I tell that story all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Because it's good to hear this. Because when you don't hear compliments about yourself, and now that I'm looking at you and you're actually saying it to me, because I don't remember too much.
You wouldn't remember.
Yeah. You know what I mean. And
there's no way you'd remember.
And I just try to be nice, be
That's
kind.
why you let other people remember for you.
Right.
It's important. It's special to them, so they have.
And I'm getting older too, so how the memory goes. But my doctor said, "Who needs memory when you can write it down?"
Who needs a memory when you have notes?
Yeah. So I try to write little.
But anyway, that meant so much to me. I wanted to tell you thank you as a guy who's finally broken into the business and became what I wanted to become.
Yes, because it means so much, and it changes your life.
It really did, and I kind of think that it was better than it would have been if John would have been nice.
Yes,
it was a lot more personal.
Yeah.
So that was one of my great memories, definitely.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate it.
I hope you have other guys that think that too. Like you've run across other people that you converted me because I had your stuff.
Yes.
And I just wasn't, as an artist, I was kind of probably looking at one kind of style that I was into. And by that time, it'd been like, ooh, Kirby's too kind of blonde.
Yeah.
Let's get in that mode, right? Like, I got to be Starlin or something.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then, it's just...
it's preference, I try to...
you taught me a valuable lesson, and it's how I treat everybody that comes to my table.
Yes, and it doesn't take much to be kind.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Be kind.
And it means a lot. I tell you what, it goes a long way. It doesn't take much effort, but it goes a long way with those people that are going to remember that moment for a long time, even if you forget it.
That's
10
right.
minutes later.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we just had an ABC after school special happen right here and now.
Well, it was when I found out you were going to be here. I was overjoyed because I'd never went into a convention before, and I've been doing conventions now for 35 years.
Yeah, I took a little short hiatus there.
Did you?
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Were you working on something else?
Well, like I said, everybody talks about the implosion in Marvel.
Oh, that was a killer.
And, and then mine came around about 93. In 94, I was guarding buildings at a federal building. Fuck.
Wow.
But I turned lemons into lemonade. And, I worked midnight. And so midnight, you can use that downtime to draw. And see, and they don't bother you midnight. I have to deal with the public.
That's smart thinking, definitely.
Exactly. And that
I'm
federal
working, and I can still work at my craft.
Yeah, in federal buildings they have about 1,500, like level 4, and all you need is your suitability for your weapon, and and what they say is flashlight, but you have a whole gamut of stuff here. You know what I mean?
That was his favorite thing about it, actually. That's why he was like, I got
your own utility belt.
Yeah. So when you got a house and a wife, you have to really get out there and make ends meet and subsidize. You know what I'm saying? So I did that, and so I couldn't carry the gun anymore because I have a bad back and I could slip disc. And I'm finding out guys who are my age and aging were going through that problem, and they say stay away from surgery. And he says, if you can, stay away from surgery. And the needles, because there's a risk with all of that stuff.
Just find your physical. Like I went to a physical therapist because I couldn't even lift a glass.
Yeah.
My shoulder was so
Right.
screwed up, and it was better in a month.
Right.
It's posture. So if I keep my shoulder back, I never had that problem. But if I get in a thing where I'm just sitting in the same position all the time,
Yeah. Well,
it's like murder.
if you to hear John Romita Junior to get confused,
John, not Johnny.
he draws almost like this because he said he had an accident and he has a bad back and he took some injections.
Oh, he draws.
Yeah.
This.
I
Oh God, I can't do that.
said, how do you do it? Because I own an easel, it was like this. But I have to draw like this now, like flat. It's just more comfortable.
I've always done that.
You always
and
done
Tim
that?
Truman said,
Yeah.
You'll regret it. But I've never had a problem.
I don't know if that caused that bone to slip this way. I don't know. And they don't know either.
It could, yeah. Because if my chair is adjustable, okay, and most are, I'm sure, but if I have my chair in a certain position and I'm working on something that I'm going to spend a couple days on, and I start feeling it, I know I got to move that. I got to fix that somehow, and then I got to remember to stay back. Because if I don't, it doesn't take long for it to get at that point where I'm in agony.
Exactly, and it is agony.
But I can keep it at bay pretty easily if I just do that. Maintenance. Well, it's our favorite word, right?
Yeah.
Given that the panel subject is supposed to be about covers, I'll just ask you a direct question. When it comes to eye-catching covers, what do you think is the strongest feature of them? Is it the inks, the lines, the color? Where do you grab their attention from?
Well, I would say first is composition.
Absolutely.
Composition.
Yeah, composition.
Just to be clear, I want you to explain what composition means, because somebody heard that and thought cosmopolitans.
or is John Williams coming together?
Well, if your eye is a camera, you're the director when you're doing sequential art. That's the first thing. And see, I worked under the tutelage of John Romita Sr., all right? And then he would do the thumbnails. So he did the composition, and that's where I learned from. So you can have somebody coming in the foreground into the panel, and then you can put the adversary in the far, right?
Right.
And then that's how you can, more or less like control the person's eye, what you want them to see first, what you want them to see second, and then you just might have a basic standoff with two guys squaring it off. You know what I'm saying? So you're taking the most interesting scene in the comic book, the most exciting scene in the comic book, and then you convert that into the cover.
Okay.
So that's how I began, to learn composition and this rubbing elbows with the pros, And thanks to John Romita Sr. again, I say that because he changed my life.
Yeah.
He's the man that hired me.
He sounds like the biggest influence on your career, just listening to you two talk.
Yeah. So that's what I would say first and foremost.
So I got to thank John Romita Sr. By proxy. He helped with you. You helped me. So.
Would you?
Yep.
And I take it.
I wish I could have at that point in life been an assistant or learned under the tutelage of someone. Man, that would have been a dream come true at that stage. Because I lived in the middle of somewhere where there was just nothing that was like that. I was the only guy. Maybe I had two friends that were in this genre. And it's a lonely place to be sometimes.
It's just born in the right place, right time.
Yeah.
But you have to meet. Let's say if you're going to the doctor, you have to meet them halfway over the bridge. You just can't walk in there in shambles. You know what I'm saying? You have to work with them, and they can work with you. Because my doctor said, people come in here sick as dogs, and they expect you to fix it. So art is the same way. You can't learn from a vacuum. You have to have seen it before. And I copied till I was crazy. And then one day I said, I don't want to copy anymore. I want to try to, draw from memory. And sure enough, you do retain what you see in your memory, and you're young. So your memories should be sharp. It's like my teacher said, why you guys are shaking when you ink? Your reflexes should be sharp. And I still don't know how he did it. You know what I'm saying? So basically, like I said, everything comes from at least art repetition. Just copy. Just look at other artists.
I love this is supposed to be a cover panel, but so far I feel like it's me and Mr. Bradstreet interviewing you.
It's a combination.
I mean, covers aren't. They don't just start at covers. I mean,
right.
There's things to consider beyond the surface of it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that the interiors don't matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, like when you go into a little side story or something like that, it may not directly correlate, but there is a correlation, definitely.
Right.
Yes.
And two, with composition, you know, like if you look at a guy like Frazetta is a great example of that A-frame composition, and he's exactly right. What you're trying to do in that composition on that cover is you're trying to find that combination of positions that bring a unity to it. That exactly you get the focal point first, and then you can. I use a triangle a lot of times, but not like this. I'll use it all over the place as long as there's that connection, right?
Exactly.
And if I make my main character's head a little bigger, or you know his character a little bigger than the other guys, then you're accomplishing that too. Yeah. And there's so many ways to go about it, and there's so many. Art's just so subjective, you know. Technique is beside the point. If you're doing a cover, your job is to get someone to pick that up. If they pick it up, there's like a 38% chance they'll buy it, and if they don't pick it up, there's no chance they're going to buy it. Right. So I try to do beyond like how you come up with composition and stuff like that.
He actually has some of your Hellblazer covers right there in his hand.
Those are those are crazy. Yeah. These are cool. This was interesting because I got to do a lot of stuff. I got to do a lot of experimenting and things with Hellblazer because the editors were fine with it. So I could kind of go from doing a full page thing like that to having more. This is like continuity, right? And then these are 4-issue series, 4-issue. What do they call them? Arcs. That have a similar design flow through each one that makes those 4 go together. Right. So this has every issue of this 4-issue series has this same kind of build right here, and then the scene takes place over here. It's almost like I'm setting up my own creepy magazine, or you know the old EC books with the big giant banner head on them. Yeah. So, but these are just. I'm a noodler and I'm an illustrator, and I love doing just little things and details and. So that comes across, and everyone's different, you know. I mean, look at Kurt Swan, you know. I mean, it's there's so much simplicity, and artists work towards that simplicity. I hear, all their careers, and all I'm doing is going the other way. I'm never going to be Kurt.
And then also, I'd like to mention if you watch the pros and Marvel traditional comic book covers, you have your character squaring off on rooftops. So you have
there's a whole different dynamic in the 70s and 80s, right?
Right. So if you master your depth and perspective. You know what I mean? So if they're higher up, everything is a vanishing point. So you try to create that stuff that's going to draw your attention.
You're just trying to direct the eye.
Right. You know what I mean? Say, wow, I got to get this book. You know what I mean? And they're really high up on a bridge on top of the Empire State Building with Spider-Man. So it's angles.
For me, it's composition and subject matter.
Yeah.
It's guys with,
And angles.
Absolutely. Angles, man. I love to throw things on their side.
Yeah.
I got to do a cover of Punisher one time where they let me play with all the trade dress and stuff. So the Punisher's off kilter. Yeah. And then I had the logo flying off kilter. And then I had dirt and crap flying all over the place. And it just was so chaotic. Yeah. There was unity to it. You know?
Yeah.
Well, if I can ask, a lot of times, like you said, you're asked to take probably the most energetic moment in whatever issue you're working on and turn it into a single image to sell the book in that moment.
He's good at that. I can do before or after, but I never do that action right in the middle. I do like just before or just after. I love those little things, you know.
Right, but there's a sect of people
There's professionals that do that middle part.
There's a sect of people who can be turned out by comic books because they do see those covers that grab their attention, and this is the moment they think is coming, but somehow that moment doesn't materialize in the story. You know, how do those happen?
Well, the writers.
The writers.
In other words, what you're saying is that we kind of like twist or.
No, well, I mean,
that was kind of classic to comic books.
It's a little bit of a complaint, you know, sometimes from long-term or short-term readers, is that they see a cover that has, say, an interesting image. You know, Wolverine finally gets his hands on Batman. There's claws through his chest. You go through 22, if it's an extra size, 48 pages worth of story, and that moment doesn't actually occur.
Here's what happened. It's an inventory cover. Artists got sick and they had to slide one in.
Yeah, we think the same thing. Symbolic too. You can get away with covers like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Because believe me, I'm not looking to demonize you.
There are rules, but there are no rules.
Right.
There's rules,
and
but there aren't.
And there's no rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. when I look up people, when I'm asked to do panels, I tend to do a little bit of research about your guys' careers and your histories. For some reason, Mr. Wilson, I couldn't find a whole lot of your history.
It's been out of it.
Are you just a private person? Do you not like people like me, or?
Can't you tell?
Well, in terms of history, because I'm on Wikipedia.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can Google me, and all that stuff will come up. And I do interviews, but, like I think you said you didn't like doing panels.
I know, no one ever comes.
I don't like doing too many interviews.
20 people in the 300
You know what I mean?
Because I did look you up on Wikipedia, but to be fair, any moron like myself could change everything in it, so I have to ask these questions.
Yeah, so I just never been asked too much, unless something was coming up where He-Man was doing an anniversary, and they wanted me to talk about Masters of the Universe, and then I still wouldn't show up for the interview, so, it just depends.
Right, because I did find a large part of your career in 1980 to 1983. You worked on the Hulk, Captain Britain, Black Goliath, Power Man, and the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. I mean, you worked on
this magazine, right?
Yes.
Right, and these were, with the exception of the Hulk, all these characters, I would say, are extreme cult characters. They have their dedicated fan bases that you cannot shake them from.
You did them all, man.
And especially with characters like Black Goliath and Power Man in the 80s, I mean, do you think the portrayal of black characters at the time of your work was proper compared to society, or do you think it's evolved to a better point now?
Well, it definitely evolved to a better point, because you can take the black exploitation films,
right,
and you know how blacks were portrayed there.
Yes.
Sort of like bigger than life.
Right.
But Marvel and Stan Lee, who, by the way, is still razor sharp in his thinking, and he's
sweet back.
Yeah, he's 83, but Stan did characters because they had human traits, and Marvel was always, they always catered to that.
Right.
Real people, real situations, problems like Peter Parker, and we've always
those are good slice of life problems.
Yes, we always
everybody I can identify with it.
Exactly.
Great character.
Well, I think even Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, had the same kind of issues. It's just, back then there weren't a lot of people who had a lot of interpersonal relationships with those characters. I give you an example. I keep saying throughout this weekend I'm an X-Men fan, but not because I'm a fan of people who are able to blast things with their eyes, but because the whole allegory of the book for minorities really resonated with me. And it's something I found in myself, being a half-black male.
Right.
I'm the type of person that when I was a kid, I wasn't dark enough for the black kids, and the white kids had no idea what to do with me, so no one would talk to me.
Right?
That would have been easy. I might as well have been from Mars. I was living in Omaha.
I should have moved to Southern California.
Absolutely.
Right.
That came later. So, I mean, it seems like... I don't want to say society caught up to comic books, but it seems like comic books finally reflected society and vice versa, and things are coming to a point. Yeah, things are coming to a point where we can finally see each other eye to eye, and not think that comic books are simply for, snot-nosed kids and mentally handicapped adults.
I mean, it had that reputation through the mid-'90s. It only recently changed, and it was Frank Miller and Alan Moore and Bill Sienkiewicz and forgetting the guy's name, Dave McKean. And those guys came in and kind of they kind of changed it for everybody. And it told us we could do different stuff and not just how to draw comics to Marvel.
Exactly.
And that was great for
I wanted
like
to add a little to that also.
I could never be you guys.
Not to cut you off. When I first got into Marvel, I think Power Man was my first character.
That was my first one.
I drew.
That
and the man before me was Billy Graham.
Billy.
Was also an African-American artist.
My two favorite
artists. But he always wanted to work in Broadway plays, so he was not happy as a comic book artist.
Wow.
And then when he left, Marvel...
Did he write them?
No, he drew them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Drew
when he
Broadway
left,
plays? Do you mean like playbills? Or?
That's badass.
Plays. Broadway.
Kind of like Craig Russell does the opera books.
Got it.
Broadway.
They're adaptations,
So when he left, Marvel put me on Power Man, because Marvel did try, so they said, let me put a black artist on the black characters. You know what I'm saying? So that was the thing,
Right.
Hey, look, it got your work, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, I wasn't complaining. So I said, hey, neat, So Marvel did try.
I'm curious about that. Would you feel like, they're only putting me on it because of, a stupid political reason here at the company, or do they have some fucking balls and they're going to say, I'm going to cast this the right way. I need to have somebody who understands this world to a degree. Get behind these characters because he's going to bring more truth to them. He's going to bring that sense. You're going to bring yourself into it.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes more than just some drawings on a page in panels.
Exactly. Well, I like the latter part of your statement. because I agree with that. That you can bring more insight, more depth to the character, and more ideas.
It's neat, because, like, I'm Native American, and if I watch spaghetti western and see some guy come by with a little pocket knife taking out the whole tribe, it's like, what is this?
Yep.
Right.
How do we live out
I want a pocket knife like that.
Well,
Yeah.
Natives will read a lot of comic books when you're in the middle of nowhere.
That's crazy.
Nice.
Just like my life in Omaha.
On the rest, they got comic books in grocery stores, gas stations.
That's true, man. That's true.
Cool.
If you stop and see the thing, there's comic books in there.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. I only been on reservations one time. I was just passing through, and the kids was playing video games. So it was, I wish I could stay a little bit longer, but it was a really nice experience.
You found a lot of comics down to 40.
Their representation, and it's like, okay, that would never fly, and you take that out of there. And
Right, authenticity.
A little more respect or something, you know?
Authenticity.
It's bizarre
That's right.
in a way that kind of influence and like nothing being written specifically for a minority or something like that, and it kind of isolates you a little bit more, because then you have to live vicariously through these other people, and then that's kind of, I don't think it's really, it's not fair. I don't know how to put that, but it's like there should be something for everybody.
Yes.
Even if it's historical. But we need to have more awareness like that, and I think in a lot of ways we get it in comics, and we get it in some parts of pop culture, because you're able to give a message.
Right.
It's the old Star Trek thing, right? It's like we can do things on here we couldn't do and just say them because we're in the future, or it's Mad Magazine, we can do parody.
But doesn't that also cut the other way when you have someone, say, who isn't an African American drawing or writing an African American starring book? I'm not going to say that's how these people act, but you also get a little bit of insight as to how the creators view these ethnicities. So I guess that's another reason why I read comics, was because I didn't, being the being the shunned child, I spent a lot of time not talking to people, watching TV, reading comic books, and this is how I learned what other people might have thought of me. So life imitates art, which then again imitates life, I guess was the cycle I figured out in my little mind at the time. But actually, Mr. Wilson, you were also there, speaking of African Americans in comic books, you were there at the creation of Milestone Comics.
Not exactly.
No.
I had more of a foot at Marvel.
Okay, see, Wikipedia lied to me.
I was around.
It's just probably a miss.
I did a cover here and there, but that was more Dennis Cowan's. And Dennis Cowan's pet job, or whatever you want to call it.
Can you say what the energy was like in the studio? Because you did have some interaction with them.
It was business-like.
Were you guys all working in the same place?
Well, it was like it was like one big room, but they had like the cubicles too.
So you had Dennis Cowan and you and
I can't. Dwayne Duffy, who passed away.
Right.
Okay, so
you had
it was Dennis and Dwayne Duffy like running the show. And of course DC was the mother of Milestone, so they had to. How can I say it? DC was their watchdog.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? So much they could do.
Kind of like Wildstorm.
You know what I'm saying? Control the look of the book, the feel of the book, control the paper, which I didn't kind of like too much, the quality of the paper. And that was the only thing that the critique that I had with Milestone. Just said, where did this paper come from?
Yeah, it's like cheap, almost cheaper than newsprint.
Yeah,
kind
it
of
should
paper.
look like the average comic book paper. Yeah.
And blacks don't print black; they print gray. And
Yeah.
cheap shit.
So maybe it was an economics and a money thing.
Probably. And when was that? Because remember when the paper mill fire happened and it really shot prices up across the board in comics? Yeah, that was a killer.
Yeah, so maybe that could have an effect too.
It was that and that collector's market that brought us to a screeching halt about 3 years later.
Right.
So, actually, Mr. Bradstreet, the earliest work credits I found for you were for Vampire the Masquerade.
Right.
What volumes did your work appear in?
I did the first game, and it was I did several of them, but the first game was the one that turned White Wolf from a garage company to $1 million company overnight. I mean, it was like weird. And it was, for me, it was like the right project at the right time. I was just living in that kind of world, and I was doing photo. I was kind of going photo real, and I was using my friends for models, and they all looked like they were great. I mean, I was always into Shadow, Gene Day, and Steranko, and these guys I got this sense of like wanting to do a very high contrast kind of style, but also illustrative. And I forgot what I was talking about.
It's okay. I had to ask when I found out about that because my wife actually played Vampire the Masquerade.
Right. I got guys. I'd be like, I was in Europe working on this animated movie, and this guy from Paris came over to do mocap, and he's like, "I read your books when you. Oh my God, it's you!" He was freaking out.
Yeah.
And and he's older than me.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, okay. But I get it. There's this real fervor for that stuff because it changed the way vampires are perceived. I mean, Interview with the Vampire did a little bit of that, and I think that influenced what they did to a degree.
Okay.
But then they just did a documentary on how Vampire the Masquerade changed the perception of whatever. I don't know how to really put it, but it's how did it affect pop culture and vampires from then on. And it's kind of crazy. It was a lightning in a bottle thing. It's one of those things that happens once, if you're lucky, it'll happen twice. But
yeah, I married an Irish redhead, so she's already tall, pale, has the hair. Then I found out she played vampires, so I actually asked her, "How did you marry me?" You're all into vampires, and if anything, I'm short, squat, and fuzzy. I'm a freaking werewolf.
She likes a brew job.
I'm sorry, but I want to know what she looks like. You got a picture of her?
Not offhand, simply because I changed phones recently. But
incidentally, Vampire also is the job that got me into the comics industry.
Really?
I used to go up to Chicago Comic Con every year, and from the time it was at the old Ramada Inn, to see. I'd usually go up because Tim Truman was my favorite artist. I could go up to him every year and have him look at my work and talk about. He always gave me lots of time. And, I bought a lot of his work because I loved his work, and we developed a relationship. Anyway, like over probably 4 or 5 years showing him my stuff, I came in with that vampire stuff that year, and he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to work on something together?" and I went, "Yeah." My dad said I couldn't. He said I couldn't wipe the smile off my face for like 2 months. He's like, it thrilled him. He goes, he was watching this happen, and it was just, I'd love to see that happen to somebody. That's great. But it's great, too, because, and I'm off on a tangent here, but like, when you gave me that piece of advice and taught me that thing, that let's be nice to people on the other side of the table, because you never know when they're going to be on the other side of the table.
That's right.
It's important to be realistic about who you are. I went to this signing in a comic store, and there's lines around the block. Man, I must be really fucking popular. And then, you go to another comic store site, and it's like crickets, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm not so crazy.
Back down to earth.
Yeah. Actually, I want to back up just a minute because you made me realize while we were talking about Milestone, about the age I figured out that comic books were not just the characters, but the guys who were working on them was about the time Dwayne McDuffie died. So I don't have a whole lot of insight as to whom he was and what kind of person he was. Can you help me out with that a little bit?
Okay, I got a little bit distracted here. It's talking about losing my thought.
I forgot the question. What was it?
Yes. Repeat the question again. Excuse me.
Throw it on me real quick. Oh, unless he's...
Okay.
Unless you can check it quick. Yeah, he's done.
Basically, about the age I found out how much work creators put into books and started to follow them individually, that's when Dwayne McDuffie died. So I just have no context as to what kind of a person he was.
Very intellectual. Because, he did a lot of work for Warner Brothers. And he was part of the guys that kind of took interest in one of my animation projects. But my manager sort of cursed out one of the executives, and they gave us the royal boot.
Old high school.
Yeah.
Friend
So Dwayne is very smart, and if you ever hear his name, Dwayne is always the man behind the scenes that's moving the pieces to the puzzle. That's cool. Very intellectual guy, very quiet but smart.
How old was he when he passed away?
He died of a heart failure, and he was a young man. Dwayne McDuffie was probably like maybe 40.
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate, so we lost a brilliant one.
And you've also done comic books based on World Championship Wrestling, 1992 to 94.
That was
the heyday too.
Because I talked to Brian Polito. He did World Wrestling Federation comics a few years later. But I'm always trying to picture how troublesome it can be to draw when you're trying to stare at this person who's this larger than life personality and probably dripping body oil onto the pages as you're working. So what is it like to have to talk to these people and then put their image on the page?
Well, let me tell you about the upside. The upside is you get to hang out with the wrestlers. And my best friend was Johnny B. Bad. A swell guy. And I saw him out of character, and I didn't know him because he said, well, I'm not playing Johnny B. Bad anymore. So I really didn't know him. He has a small film company, and, so he's a very swell guy. But, I don't want to play any violins. That book, you're drowned in reference. And you have to make characters, the real life characters, look like themselves. Mm-hmm. And I really was never an illustrator or portrait artist. So I'm looking at the book now and just assign it, and I'm saying, hey, it looks like these guys. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even know how I did it. But I know you're drowned in reference, and it's a pain in the butt, just like the Masters of the Universe, He-Man. So you have to get all the likenesses and everything.
You just get lost in it.
Yeah, and then they want the book, the deadline. They always told me the book was never on time as far as they was concerned. But I did lose my father around that time, so I was going through some things that they didn't know about. But I had a lot of fun. I got to hang out.
I'm surprised you can still work.
Yeah, and those guys were huge. So I don't know how many was on steroids or not, but they were huge.
Oh yeah, I would say at that time period, probably everyone.
That was just before they started actually monitor them.
Maybe Greg Gagne did.
Hung out backstage.
Like a regular dude. Bob Backlund, I don't think he ever took steroids.
Got tickets for my family. Went to the wrestling matches, and there was more fights in the stands than there were in the ring. So
it's like Philadelphia.
And these were young girls throwing it out. You know what I mean? So
went to a wrestling match and a hockey game broke out.
Yeah. Where did you see matches at? Where were you at?
Baltimore.
Baltimore, really?
Went to the arena.
Oh wow,
that's hilarious. I was born there.
Yeah.
I haven't been back. I mean, I was born there. I lived there for about a year. My dad worked for NASA, like or some satellite project or something. But that's funny. Jason, were you born there?
No, I got married there.
Got married there?
And my brother lives there. So.
And how long were you around there?
In Baltimore?
Yeah.
Well, my parents took me there when I was young.
Oh, I got you.
My brother was older.
Sorry, I just was curious.
So, they were into the crab fishing and seafood, and they owned these stores. And I was a little kid, spinning around on the stool.
That must have been fun.
And these guys, what did they eat? What's that? Like oyster or something like that. And they put ketchup on it.
Oh yeah.
Oyster. I was just a little kid looking up at him and said, "Ew."
What?
You know what I mean?
Are you putting it in your mouth?
Yeah. So it was so Baltimore, like I said, seafood town, and they make the best crabs.
Chesapeake Bay, baby.
In the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But that's all they can do.
Oh, actually,
that's all they can do.
I highly recommend you come up to Winter Harbor, Maine, and try that crab's pretty goddamn good too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, my dad's uncle was a crab fisherman, and when I was a kid, we got to go on the boat and stuff. So I know what you're talking about, and it was just cool.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to Maine and Upper. So maybe one day I'll have a chance to do that. Right?
It's beautiful,
especially around the fall time.
Baltimore is beautiful too. Chesapeake Bay is great.
Yeah.
So, have you seen it on a cover?
Well, actually, that begs the question. Your dad was a crab fisherman. How do you respond when you got into illustration as a business?
Are you talking to him? It was my dad's uncle, Uncle Frank.
Oh.
Uncle Frank Dyer. He passed away a long time ago. But no, that was my pop. I didn't deal with any of that. I grew up in Illinois, and I had an idyllic childhood, and I don't know why, but I had to escape somehow.
Yeah.
Well, I do know why. I probably had ADD when I was a kid, and I was hyperactive and.
Before they knew what that meant.
Yeah. I mean, they put me on drugs for a little while. And my dad, I was on it for a week, and my dad said, "I'm not going to have a doped up kid. I was just a zombie."
I got you.
So he said, "We'll deal with it."
Yeah.
By puberty, I worked myself out of it. So.
Yeah.
But I think that had something to do with it.
Okay. That's the upside to it.
Well, your work is also pretty prolific when it comes to Hellblazer, and there was a one-season show about a year ago. I watched it, but I've never read any of the comics, so it's hard to put into context. So I'd like you to explain to me anything you can think of that the show did well.
Well, I thought they cast it well.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because he looks like my brother-in-law. They used him as a casting. I mean, I thought that was That was obvious.
Wow.
I mean, that guy looks like Steven. And so I thought that was a very good choice. I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen a bunch of stuff on it, and people sent me frame caps of. The first story is there's some artist gown or studio is all these Hellblazer covers are in the background.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, there's that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. And they walk past Bradstreet Hall and stuff like that. So I mean that's like ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I mean it's just.
And you're one of the most prolific cover artists I've ever heard of. You did 70 covers in 5 years.
I did a lot more than that.
You did a lot more than that?
Well, I mean, no, you're right. I was just thinking about. I did 2 regulars for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Is that per month or?
It's over 100 issues of each.
Wow.
But inside of 5 years, I'd say it was probably more like 125. Because I was doing stuff for role-playing games. I was doing stuff for. I'd be doing a movie poster. I'd be doing a.
So you weren't just inundating Marvel and DC with stuff.
No, it's weird. I'm an illustrator that happens to work in comics because I love comics. Mm-hmm. But I'm probably more of a if you wanted to pigeonhole me, I'm more of a pulp book illustrator. You know. Mm-hmm. I don't know who to compare it to, but that's how I feel anyway.
Yeah. Well, does anyone have any questions?
It's bizarre.
I don't want to monopolize. Okay.
And they shouldn't have canceled Constantine. Because I heard the word is that it was okay. Mm-hmm. And then towards the end it was like, wow, it's getting good.
Yeah.
Just when it's getting good, pull the rope.
I watched parts of it and I was trying to understand why I wasn't happy because I make it no secret to anybody I talk to. I'm a Marvelite, but I'll try anything and everything to see if I'm going to be a fan.
It's dark.
And yeah, Constantine is dark, but it's not outside the realm of anything I've watched. My daughter's 12 and she's starting to freak me out. But
well, the film version was darker than
it
TV.
was, and I'm one of the few people who will say openly I enjoyed the film version.
Yeah.
The TV version, I wasn't looking for Keanu Reeves Part 2. I was looking for whatever they were going to bring me.
I want a British fucking John Constantine.
I agree.
That's what I want.
But
and one that's blonde, because if you're going to make John Constantine have black hair and Keanu Reeves and base it in L.A., then why don't you just make Superman bald and Persian?
I understand.
Because it makes the same amount of sense to me.
But if what I found out after the show was put on hiatus before it was canceled was that they seemed to have done 2 things that worked against them. One, they did the pilot, like you said, with the young artist lady, but they didn't lock down the woman who played her to a contract.
Oh,
so when it came to
that'll screw you.
When it came to bring the show towards season, she found out how big her role was going to be in the ongoing and asked for an increase, and they decided to write her character out off screen and bring in another one who functioned as the seer. So that created this weird hiccup right when things started. And then I also found out that I had trouble, because it felt like there were certain parts of the story that were important in one episode and then completely ignored in others. I found out that, it was a CBS show? CBS or NBC? I want to say it was CBS. But,
I think it was CBS.
Yeah, CBS actually tried to drum up more interest in the show before it came out by reshuffling all the episodes and showing them out of order. So I'm not really sure what narrative they were trying to tell.
Didn't they learn from Firefly that's a shitty-ass idea? I mean, everyone complains about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm a guy programming a show, I'm not going to do the cardinal sin and show them out of order.
Yeah, but I think Firefly had one advantage to it in that Firefly knew it was on the bubble during its entire creation, so they went balls to the wall every episode and tried to make it as grandiose as possible.
Well said.
When it came to Constantine, I'm sure they made the show they intended to make, but they just had no idea that studio level people were just mucking it all up.
Yeah, it got a lot of muck, and Nick Cage was supposed to play him initially, and then it went to Keanu, and it was the Bonaventure, the producer.
Right.
He quit his whatever company he was with, and Hellblazer was the first thing. Constantine was the first thing, but I thought it was a great supernatural thriller. But I didn't think it was a John Constantine. It wasn't Hellblazer.
Right.
Not to me.
I agree.
mean, they had the cancer thing, and oh man, I got to do a panel with.
Yeah,
actually, in San Diego, and I sit next to Rachel Weisz. That's hard. That's really hard. She's adorable. Yeah. Oh my god.
That was actually one of my biggest gripes as a relatively new person coming into this. Was 4 episodes. It took 4 episodes before Constantine was actually smoking on screen in the TV show.
Yeah, see, and I mean, this is the kind of thing that network TV is going to try to do. This is what they do. They try to either dumb it down so it appeals to more of a mass audience, but almost all the time they're going to go against a drug action because they're going to lose advertisers and all that kind of thing. So picture Steve Niles. He's got a great character called Cal McDonald, Monster Hunter, and he takes drugs, any kind of drugs, to deaden him because he sees stuff no one else sees, and it would drive you insane.
Right.
And so he tries to medicate himself to the point where he can actually deal with this. And it's not for just recreation's sake, you know. And but every movie studio that gets interested in it wants to take the drug element out of it, and that's almost the entire linchpin of the character. So I think it falls on those lines too.
Yeah. Mr. Wilson, I found out that you are working on a creator-owned series called Battle Rappers.
Was.
Oh, what was the story?
Well, it's just about aliens taking liking to rappers.
Love it.
And they wanted to challenge the rappers.
There is a small part of me that just wants to yell Kardashians at the top of my lungs.
I'm thinking more, what's the Tim Allen Star Trek?
Oh, Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest, man. They're great. So they come to Earth and they abduct several well-known rappers and take them back and learn from it. You know, and like, oh, we're going to emulate this, and their whole planet becomes a rap planet.
Dubstep war,
awesome.
intergalactic space.
I just had to switch gears because I'm working on Battle Rappers, Super Boxers 2.
Yes.
Yeah, so I own the rights to that. I do not own the rights to Super Boxers 1 because that's licensed through Marvel, and this. I don't have no desire to do anything with.
So can you write it? Are you writing?
No, I have writers help me out to write the book.
Cool.
And,
you gonna get Armando to ink you? You gonna get Armando to ink you? Because he inked you on the first one, right?
Yeah, he inked the first one, and it was pretty good.
I thought it was an interesting marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, diametrically different styles in a way.
Yeah, Dwayne Turner said the same thing you said. But I don't know which direction I'm going to go in. But at any rate, we're trying to do a Super Boxers movie, but I can't talk too much.
So, the idea of it is great because taking that sport to that sensationalist kind of level, kind of like rollerball in a way, right?
Exactly.
If you had to compare it to anything, that's
/ Rocky
kind of thing.
I mean, I'm not familiar with Super Boxers.
But it's
taking
game,
boxing to an extreme sport, or
well, it's sci-fi.
Right.
It's boxing in the future.
So it ain't just gloves. Okay. It's like I have jets in my. It's like all kinds.
Exactly.
Right. It's like real steel, except it's not robots.
You should check it out. And Super Boxers was like one of the first 5 graphic novels. Period. Right.
Yeah, we were one of the first 5, and when they said that the rights would revert back to us, we all jumped at it.
That's crazy.
And of course, you know, it's good to work for hire, but you kind of want to sit back in your rocking chair, which I'm in right now.
Hey man, enjoy the stuff that you create.
Collect your royalties, and you know, you can't be Stan Lee, who created a universe.
Hey, you deserve it, man, because you can't work yourself to death.
Yes.
You shouldn't. No one should be living check to check by the time they're 65.
Right.
You should have it wired.
Right.
If you're just going to stay in the business.
So we keep plugging away.
I'm glad you're still around.
So stay tuned. So things may happen real soon. Super Boxers.
I don't want to keep you guys past time. So are there any other projects you guys are working on, like right now, that people should be looking for?
Just that one for me.
Just Super Boxers too.
Yeah.
I skip around all the time. I'm doing a couple of monthlies, and I'm working heavily with John Carpenter's company, Storm King.
Okay.
And I'm doing a ton of covers for those guys, which is great because it's kind of a new home. When you're at Marvel or when you're at DC and you get to do a long run on a popular character, and then you get to go do that at Marvel too, you get to the point where you're like, it becomes your way of life. And when you don't have that anymore, you almost feel lost for me. It's like, what should I get to replace it? And initially, when the one book ended, I was still working on the other one, and then when that book ended, I was so busy doing some other stuff, I didn't think about it, I didn't care. I thought it would just come, you know. But then you get to a point finally where you're like,
I've been to the same
I
thing.
want another goddamn month. And then they're like, and so all I'm getting is these like, you know, if the first 5 issues do well, we're going to do another arc, and I'm like, man, I just want something I can do every month.
Exactly. And I left the thing thinking I got tired of drawing all those rocks, but all those rocks paid. I think I did over 1 million rocks, but it paid the bills.
That's right.
And they put me on He-Man. They flew us out to Mattel Toys in California. We got the gig. And that's when I started.
You kind of is that where you segued when you stepped out of comics?
No, I was dead in there.
Oh,
dead in there, and After that, and then I got put on WCW, so I got put on a lot of reference books. So I should have stayed on the thing.
And it kept you busy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it has been a pleasure talking.
That's the one thing. As a fan of art, and growing up as an artist, you usually become a student of the game.
Yes.
When you're there, you want to learn everything about what you're getting into, and it's a strange. It was a strange industry back then, and it's strange now. It's still strange.
I think we got in the right time because we're considered the Bronze Age. I was taught by the Golden Age, and I'm proud of that.
That would have been incredible.
Yes.
I think everybody dreams about that. That came up that next generation, right? And the next generation still dreams about it, but it's less and less possible.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys surf the comic book racks, these are two guys who probably made some of those memorable images you'll come across as you're trying to decide whether or not you want to give a series a try. This is Mr. Tim Bradstreet and Mr. Ron Wilson. Thank you very much.
I want to start something that, like, when an artist who you've watched for a long time kind of slowly disappears from the industry and then they're no longer around. I want to know what happens to every one of those guys. I want to do a reference book.
Yeah, cool.
You know, what happened to Pat Roderick?
We're okay now.
Yeah. Where did you go from drawing comics as an illustrator? Did you do storyboards in Hollywood? Did you move into this? Did you quit entirely and do something else? I think those are fascinating questions.
That'd be something I'm interested in because I would love to talk to John Byrne about the issues of the Dark Phoenix saga I collected. I mean, I would love to get them signed, but I still like to talk to the man because that became a burned-into image in my head, and he just dropped out of conventions altogether. You're lucky if you can get him to talk about comic books.
Ron, I just figured out I'm going to do a documentary next. Do that? That would be so cool, though. Yeah, think about things in the comics industry, and now that it's almost, we've been looking back on ourselves for so long, and now you're seeing blank covers, and you're seeing the industry kind of change in ways that are really cool. That's one thing I think comic book fans would be really interested in, you know? Yeah. Well, it was always a nagging question for me, you know?
Yeah, that sounds like something you could produce and debut in San Diego or New York.
I'm going to talk to Jane about it because we'll take it. He can take it to CAA.
All right.
I can take it to Tom.
I recorded the panel. I was going to use it as we're going to post it online, obviously, in a couple places. Could I get your email so I can send you?
See, that's what I enjoyed about all the panels I hosted over the course of the weekend. Not only did I get to talk to very notable creators, I feel like I learned something every single show. It was so much fun. And again, I need to catch up with the Secret Identity show so that I can tape a formal panel with them. But I have no complaints at the end of this. And Ron Wilson said we should keep in touch. I wonder what he has in mind. That's the amazing thing about this show. As much as I thought a lot of it would end up just me talking with friends and the few people who are interested, I've actually met creators as a result of this show. If that gives you any inspiration to start your own podcast and start shooting for the stars and talking to your favorite creators, I am very glad for you because so far, even if I don't make any money at this, and I really hope to one day, I have done a lot more than I thought I could do, and I have met some amazing people in the industry who, some of which actually seem to know my name and like me at this point. Senpai likes me! But I had a lot of fun. I want to thank Chandler Rice, Sharon Rice, and Great American Comic-Con and Celestial Comics for inviting us out. We had an amazing time, and I have memories that are going to live on until I get that early onset Alzheimer's that I'm expecting pretty soon. We're hoping to be back next year to host more panels. We are hoping to host panels at more conventions in California. Hopefully we will meet some of you who are listening to us on a regular basis. We appreciate all of you. We hope your 2016 has been good. If it hasn't, we hope your 2017 has been better. I want to thank everybody, including Steve, Jesse, V, and Elise for at least trying out the show. And I really hope that we make more of a mark on the internet and on the comic books world as we go forward into 2017. We ain't quitting yet. Thank you very much. Have a great one. I am Jeremy. Don't drink and drive. Take care, everyone.